Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the fourth edition of our REIMAGINE 2020 virtual conference series, brought to you by MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator and Multi.io crypto exchange. I'm your host, Ashlie Meredith, bringing you this special Halloween spooktacular, Tales from the Crypto. Today, I'm on with Zach Nelson. He's a crypto partnership associate at OKCoin, but a longtime friend of the pod or friend of the show or friend of MouseBelt, we would say. Hi, Zach. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be here, and I can't believe it's almost Halloween. But there's been so much happening in crypto, so super excited to be on the show.
Absolutely. It's definitely been for all of the ups and downs and mostly downs of the year. Crypto has surprisingly had a lot of exciting developments. Bitcoin's up. So excited to be celebrating Halloween while we're stuck at home, having this kind of fun version of Reimagine 2020. So everyone who's just tuning in, if you missed it, head over to our YouTube channel, Reimagine 2020 on YouTube. Zach came on before when he was still a student to represent UW Blockchain Society and has been involved in the blockchain space for a long time, working with us through MouseBelt University, educating people on blockchain, and recently graduated on Zoom, right?
Yeah, that's right. Not exactly Zoom, but it was a YouTube graduation, but it was totally online. A little bit unexpected, but hey, at least I got the degree.
Absolutely. So for me, it's really exciting to have been doing this university program for 2.5 years now, a little longer, and starting to see the students that I've met graduating and getting jobs in the space. So along with your interview from version 1, we did a panel called Breaking into Blockchain. And I know that you know a lot of those guys who have graduated and now have jobs in crypto. And I thought it would be really great for you to tell any of the students tuning in, how did you break into blockchain?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And I think for a lot of students, it can feel really intimidating to kind of break into the blockchain industry. And it really shouldn't be, because what I've found being in blockchain since 2011, when I first got into trading Bitcoin and kind of going to meetups later on, and then in 2017, founding the UW Blockchain Society, I realized that the community really kind of stands by the principles that Bitcoin and blockchain represent, which is inclusivity and kind of reaching out and connecting by lowering barriers to access around the world. And that means that most people in blockchain who are really passionate about it are willing to kind of talk with students who are interested in a certain project or feature of blockchain. A lot of these community members and companies, MouseBelt, for example, and later on I interned at Ripple, definitely, invest a significant amount of resources to kind of go and connect with different student universities and clubs if you go out and make the effort to kind of talk with them. And OKCoin does the same thing. So for me, what was really cool is that, back before COVID, we were able to go to all these different meetups. So I would go with UW Blockchain to Seattle Blockchain. We hosted our own University of Washington Blockchain Expo, where we had MouseBelt startups and groups from around the country kind of come through and participate. We also had a job fair at that expo, so we could go and kind of speak with different companies. And so what I'm really driving at here is that if you're a student, in your school that you go to has a blockchain club, I would definitely join up, because they're going to be connected with lots of these companies that you may want to work with, no matter what your major is. And if you go to a school that doesn't have a blockchain club, then you can kind of be the first person to take that step and found the club, so that you too can kind of get your school involved in this community. And then in terms of kind of finding a space and finding a job or spot in the industry, what's really cool about blockchain is that because it has grown so much in the past 5 years or so, in terms of enterprise level and places where you can actually work, there's a lot of different professions that can go into that. So for me, I am kind of focused around marketing, business, and strategy, whereas a lot of my friends that kind of you mentioned earlier who were on the panel may have been into computer science or business. One of my friend, Mitchell Moose, who was the founder, co-founder of UW Blockchain, he's now an editor. So the kind of professions and the range of jobs that you can find in the space are really growing and evolving all the time. And no matter what kind of major you're interested in, there should be a company that's hiring for a position like that. Because just kind of like in traditional industry, companies need lots of different, roles to make it succeed. So you don't necessarily have to be in that traditional kind of CS role to find a place in blockchain. And I think that's really important for students who are interested in getting involved to know, is that it is a very welcoming community. It's constantly evolving and growing, and they're going to need a lot of kind of young people to grow and innovate in the space from all different backgrounds. So if you go to a school that has a blockchain club, I would definitely recommend getting involved. If your school doesn't have one, start one, and reach out to MouseBelt or different community organizer groups, and they will definitely help you find those connections and find community with other schools. And don't be afraid, because it's growing so fast right now that even if you haven't been really involved over the last 5 years, it's still an exciting time to kind of join in and get involved with the community. There's still a ton of development happening and exciting kind of new product features and blockchains coming out all the time. So like, you haven't missed the boat yet in any sense. This industry is still just getting started. And so for students who are interested in it, now is a really good time to kind of begin your journey and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always like to emphasize that you should, if you are interested in blockchain but don't know how to get in, continue to hone your skills as what you're interested in or what you're good at, because all of these companies need legal experts. They need psychologists, philosophers, marketers. And you mentioned Mitchell, one of your co-founders, and take it from Zach, take it from Mitchell. If you don't have a blockchain organization on your campus, it's a great resume builder, because we've got some examples here of people who have just barely graduated, able to find jobs in the space. And again, I'll point people to our REIMAGINE 2020 YouTube channel to check out our one-on-one interview with Mitchell. He was on the panel as well, but it was really interesting to learn from him. I'm a big fan of, I'm a news junkie, journalism. So it's interesting to see journalists who end up being crypto journalists. So many opportunities for students. Really excited to hear that you were able to find a job. I mean, what a difficult time for new graduates to be looking for work.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that I was able to find kind of a spot at OKCoin where I'm able to do what I'm passionate about full time. And in my role as a crypto partnership associate, what I really spend a lot of my time doing is connecting with these different token communities, figuring out what their needs are, and helping bring that onto the platform, whether that's product or strategic marketing, whatever it may be. We want to help these different communities kind of succeed. So yeah, definitely really exciting time. And I think what's really cool about blockchain and crypto is that in terms of the industry perspective, we're seeing this kind of shift to decentralization within the companies themselves. For example, I'm in Seattle, OKCoin is in San Francisco, and we have colleagues who are kind of around the country and even around the world. And you see similar companies taking approaches where they're now able to kind of hire remotely and bring people on remotely. And it's tough because there's a lot of industries right now that are struggling and kind of trying to find their space. At the same time, the blockchain industry is exploding. So for students, it's definitely kind of an opportunity, because you're getting into an industry that's growing really quickly. And even if you don't live in Seattle or San Francisco, or kind of these more traditional tech hubs, because of this move to decentralization around different cities around the country, you could still have similar opportunities that may have been before restricted to people who just live in those geographic areas. So even if you're not, part of one of these big tech schools or something, you could still try and find a way to join in the industry no matter where you live, which I think is one of the kind of silver linings of the move to remote during COVID, especially for students.
Absolutely. I felt pretty lucky that we've been a remote first company since our inception. MouseBelt is a blockchain accelerator. And for a while, we went through an accelerator ourselves with a previous startup, and companies were moving from all over the world to go to 500 startups in San Francisco. So you had European startups, people from all over the world. And that's really exciting too, because you can go and be in this environment in person and have these entrepreneurs all around you, and get to come to America or to San Francisco, or where all the action is. But at the time, none of the startups that we were accelerating were interested in relocating. So we said, well, let's run a remote accelerator, and it's possible. And I felt very lucky that when quarantine happened, I didn't have to have that to adjust to. Already was kind of used to the work from home life. But that's another, that's just kind of forward thinking as far as career paths. Like, what is a quarantine proof industry? Right?
Yeah,
If something like this happens in the future, like, do I have the freedom? Am I picking a career where I have a lot more freedom to travel or not have to go into an office every day? And I think it's better for the environment as well. So long as you have the processes in place and organizational philosophy and things around asynchronous communication, and you have a good baseline structure, you can do it successfully, and it's better for people's time, better for the environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And companies like OKCoin really do a good job of this. For example, they mail everybody swag in the mail. They send us different snack boxes. We get Uber Eats from home. So they definitely kind of try to take steps to make us feel like we're in the office or still connected with the company. And I think that's really important. So it's really cool to see kind of companies adapt to try to bring that culture to, for example, new employees like myself who joined online. And I think companies that are able to do that the best now will see the most success in the future. Another thing that I realized that is pretty cool is that we can continue to, for example, at OKCoin, support the community and support the development of the community, even if it's completely online. For example, participating in events like REIMAGINE. And we also have a developer grant program where we give money to Bitcoin developers to kind of help them grow the industry, because it's something that we really believe in the technology. So it's not like the community itself has like shut down while COVID has happened. It's still strong and there's still a lot of progress being made. And I think that the industry as a whole has actually adapted really well with these kind of different online events and developer programs to keep kind of innovation and community happening even through the pandemic, which, as someone who's focused on crypto partnerships and kind of that space, it's great to see, because there's been no kind of lapse or slowdown in progress. If anything, it's kind of sped up with new innovations happening and things like DeFi, which was the focus of the last REIMAGINE conference. So there's still a lot of innovation happening, which is, so it's an exciting time to be joining. And I think it's one of the few industries right now that's seeing like a ton of innovation and growth even during quarantine.
Yeah. So tell me more about your experience actually working full time at a blockchain company after, spending most of your time finishing school, organizing community on campus. What you were so knowledgeable already, right, about crypto. What's some of the biggest things you've learned now that you're actually working for an exchange?
No, that's a great question. And I think that what I've really learned that is important is like the value that exchanges bring to the space, and also kind of the way that they can engage with community to help it grow. So centralized exchanges are really important because, for example, OKCoin provides a really valuable fiat on ramp into crypto. So even with DeFi right now, where you have a lot of kind of things like Uniswap or these different dexes where you can go on and yield farm or swap tokens, you still need to at some point buy the Bitcoin or buy the token, and that needs fiat on ramps. And so what OKCoin has been really focused on is providing these fiat on ramps in the United States and globally, so that people who wanted to get into the space can very easily kind of take their local currency and transact it into crypto. And the value for that will always be there, because people will always need to actually purchase the assets to get involved in the space. So that kind of fiat on ramp, I feel like, is really important. And I think that I didn't realize how important that was in the space until I started working at an exchange. And then in terms of the day-to-day, just working with these different DeFi projects and tokens who are trying to get recognition and kind of grow in the space, we realize how important, community involvement. And so how can we actually engage with your communities in terms of, do they want more marketing? Do they want more kind of spotlight on the technology they're building? How can we actually focus on the goals that the token may want and help them succeed either through a product or marketing lens? So that's been really exciting, because while the tokens themselves can go out and evangelize themselves, and I think that's really important, what people need to be able to purchase them and interact with them, and that takes some form of exchange. So the partnership and relationship there and how important it is has become, really clear to me as I've kind of started working in this role.
And ultimately, right, the more value there is in these tokens that are listed on OKCoin, the more value that OKCoin is going to get out of listing them.
Yeah, totally. And it should be a mutual, we always try to have mutually beneficial partnerships. So coins and tokens who kind of join with us, we also want to work to help them succeed, and vice versa. And I think that partnership approach is really important in the space.
Yeah. So are you involved at all in, as the crypto partnership associate, you have a certain kind of caseload of the tokens that you're involved with? Are you involved at all in acquiring new tokens or doing any sort of research with that, acquiring new partnerships? Is it only existing partnerships?
No, that's a great question. So I'm on the listing team. So Elaine and I, kind of my partner, we work to basically from A to Z. So from kind of the discovery process, where we're looking through different tokens that have come out or tokens that may not even be tradable yet, connecting with those teams, speaking with the members on them, the founders, kind of trying to figure out their roadmap and what they're aiming for. And then we also, figure out the due diligence. So what's the kind of regulation around this coin in terms of the SEC and globally? And then we want to do things like, what is the best way this coin can succeed for listing? So kind of all the way from discovering what coins we may want to list, to connecting with the teams, to working with marketing, strategy, and kind of the compliance side to make sure that everything we're doing is regulated. We kind of take a beginning to end approach to try and make sure that any coin or company that we interact with is the most successful in what they're trying to do, especially surrounding listing. So it's really cool, because through that role, I get to have a really kind of cross-functional, perspective on things, where I'm working. And one day I could be working with compliance, the business team, the marketing team, and have multiple calls with external partners who are looking to list with us or who we're looking to partner with. So it's really kind of cool, because I get to take a lot of the breadth and experience that I've had working in the industry for so long and kind of make that a focus on what I'm doing day to day. And what's interesting is that I actually know a lot of these teams already from my experience in the space. So, teams that we're speaking to, we may have done hackathons with at UW Blockchain, or, for example, XRP is one of the tokens that we list. I actually got to intern at Ripple the past summer. So it's pretty cool, because for so long, I was kind of looking at the token side of things and trying to figure out how to make them succeed from their perspective. And now I get to see the other side from the, the exchange perspective. And what I realize is that a lot of the goals and the values are very similar. So there's a lot of synergy when you work with these teams. And a lot of the time you're really focused on kind of growing the community and succeeding together, which is really kind of an exciting piece to get to work on.
It must be fun for your colleagues over at Ripple, where you intern, to see you now, approaching them to talk about, how can I help? But from the exchange side, I heard good feedback about your time as an intern at Ripple. So I'm sure they're excited to see you over at OKCoin. And just from what you've seen so far, are there any particular spaces or use cases or tokens that OKCoin is particularly interested in right now?
So I don't want to get into specific tokens necessarily, but I think that kind of in terms of a space that we're becoming more interested in, I mean, DeFi has definitely been a focus for us lately. So that's been really interesting, kind of seeing how these centralized exchanges can bring value to the DeFi space and vice versa. So, I think DeFi has been a really interesting kind of new, I guess, evolvement in the crypto industry in terms of now people are able to buy tokens that hold governance on decentralized exchanges. That whole idea is really, really cool to me. So, for example, we just listed Uniswap recently, so people can now purchase Uniswap on OKCoin, and because they hold a Uniswap, and I'm sure the listeners know here, but then they kind of have a voting stake on the Uniswap platform in terms of its future governance. So for people who are kind of looking to get involved in these platforms now, they can actually vote on how the platform evolves and what it's going to focus on, which is pretty fascinating. And it's cool that I kind of at OKCoin get to help facilitate the purchase of these assets that then are used for governance. So I think that DeFi is an extremely interesting space, and the tokens coming out of that, while some of them are still kind of yet to be proven and it can be experimental, I would say it's probably one of the most interesting spaces that's happened in crypto in the last 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that we'll get a more deep dives or behind the scene look at what's going on at OKCoin and some of the founders and what their projections look like and what they're thinking about for the end of the year and into 2021. Just for all the listeners out there, if you're just tuning in, we're interviewing Zach Nelson from OKCoin, and we also have another interview with their COO, Jason Lau, coming up in version 4, Tales from the Crypto. So look out for that interview as well if you're interested in learning more about OKCoin. So back to you personally, and your perspectives on a blockchain. I'm catching up with you since May when we did our first interview. We had our second theme was disrupting the system. And the third theme was what DeFi is DeFi. And I asked you before we started recording, what have you been thinking about the most lately? What have you been experimenting with or learning about? Because I know that, you're always interested in learning more about the space. You said some DeFi stuff. So I just wanted to hear what is interesting you about it right now? What kind of projects are you playing around with? What are you learning about?
Sure. So, I've been doing a lot of research kind of in the DeFi space. And personally, I've been kind of trying to get involved with the communities themselves and trying to understand, why they're making the decisions they are in terms of governance, and then actually taking some of my Bitcoin and crypto assets and converting them to stake on various DeFi platforms, whether that's YFI or whatever it may be. There's many Uniswap. I think kind of understanding those platforms and using them yourself is really important, because you can read a lot about DeFi and you can read a lot about how yield farming works, but once you actually go and you stake tokens in any of these pools, I think you'll have kind of a much better understanding of why people are so excited for that. So I would say, yield farming is really kind of a cool progression in the space. I would definitely check that out. And I think another pretty exciting, involvement in the space is, I would say, even just like more kind of virtual events like we're doing here. I definitely kind of want to try and take time to get out in the community. Now that I've graduated and I'm advising blockchain, I want to try to give back my experience and kind of how I got into the space with conversations like this, so that I can help other young people kind of figure out their spot in the crypto and blockchain space. Something else I think is really important is education. I actually spent some time at UW last year as a teacher, kind of teaching in the community. And so I think that the education focus right now is really important, whether that's curriculum building, which I'm helping somewhat advise UW on. So that's kind of something that I've been pretty excited about. And as well as kind of helping students at UW get in internships with different companies in the space. So kind of working on that yield farming and DeFi aspect personally, and then also taking the time to connect students at UW with opportunities in the space to try and get more young people involved and working in the industry, especially as it's getting kind of harder to find jobs in other spaces.
Absolutely. So were you teaching a blockchain class?
Yeah, I actually taught Bitcoin and Blockchain 101 at UW, which is part of an extended learning program there. So it was really interesting because all of my students were people who are over folks over 55. So I had people from 55 to 75. I'd say some of them were even like 80 years old, and they were really excited to learn about Bitcoin and blockchain, either because their grandkids told them or they had read about it somewhere. But it really showed me that people of all ages are still trying to get involved in this industry and want to understand what it's about, beyond just the hype and beyond just buying Bitcoin and making a lot of money, but understanding the technology behind it. And that's really cool to see from people of all different ages, because, I think there is a lot of young people in the space too, but to have that kind of older generation come in too and get involved and invested really shows that the power of blockchain and kind of that inclusivity is hitting all different demographics across the spectrum. And so it just shows you that in terms of adoption, we're just getting started. And we have so much more to go in the space, from everyone getting involved to the products themselves being developed.
Well, that's so exciting. I'm very impressed. I'll have to call you Professor Zach from now on.
Oh my God.
How did some of your students take to it? Did you find that with just the right, explanations and time spent, that people who maybe not be so technically literate are still able to understand these principles behind digitalized currencies and Bitcoin and blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, they still send me articles and stuff. They'll email me articles that they see on Bitcoin or, blockchain in the news. So that's really cool to see that they've kind of followed it after the classes. And what was really exciting to me is that the first class actually sold out. And then it's been kind of weird as things moved into COVID, but the first class was totally full, which is pretty cool. And I think that they really did kind of take in the concepts, and it helped to kind of compare it to things they already understood. So, either if that's, and these aren't great comparisons, but kind of comparing it to things like gold or the stock exchange for, exchanges. And if you're going to talk about like an ICO, comparing it to an IPO, and then giving like real life use cases, like how do you actually buy Bitcoin like right now through a centralized exchange like OKCoin? This is how you do it. And then, a lot of them just wanted to actually learn how to engage and purchase and trade it. So that was part of it. And then a lot of others wanted to kind of understand the technology behind it and how it was affecting what they may be doing already. So they were really interested in, for example, supply chain kind of aspects of it, how it's, for example, Microsoft is building products that allow Starbucks to track coffee from the time it grows in the ground to when someone drinks it. They were really excited to see kind of how that worked, or how it could affect IP. So if I make a certain piece of music or something, how can I protect that by putting it on the blockchain to prove that it's mine? So just kind of relating it to their life and things that they already understood and are kind of working with made it, I think, really interesting to them. And then the fact that they would follow up with articles after the fact showed me that they weren't just kind of in it for the short run, and some of them are actually thinking about this and are now kind of permanently involved in the community. Because I think what, Ashlie, what you and I both kind of realized was like, it's like a rabbit hole almost. Like once you start learning a bit about how it works and getting involved in the community and learning about the technology, it's just like a never ending kind of experience where you just want to learn more and more. And because it's growing so fast, you can't ever learn it all. So you're just kind of hooked on learning all the latest information and working with the latest tokens. And that just keeps speeding up and up and up. So I feel like even in the, this maybe I think 6 or 7 months since I've taught the class, there's already a whole new bunch of material that would be added to that curriculum. So it's constantly evolving.
Absolutely. Well, that's super exciting to hear. I love that. We've had, this concept of doing like a Bitcoin for Christmas campaign. And with this reimagined vehicle now, I think we'll for sure do it in December. But we created all sorts of guides on like how to teach grandma about crypto or buy your grandma crypto for Christmas, So
Yeah.
yeah, just that adoption part of it and how to explain these concepts in a good way. And that's kind of just universal, for any age group, how to distill these concepts down and communicate them effectively. So Yeah, and then just the rabbit hole that you get into, because when you start learning about crypto, you have to start learning about political theory, governance structures, incentives, capitalism, just traditional finance. So even being in blockchain for 2.5 years with the What the Fi is DeFi event, when I was watching all of those interviews, I was realizing that when these DeFi projects were explaining the solutions to the problems, like I didn't even really understand or know existed in traditional finance. Like I
Mhm.
was just learning a lot about how credit works in the US, all of this different stuff. So if you're a curious person and you're a hungry person and if you love learning, it's definitely a good industry for being able to, it's not just you're just learning about how consensus mechanisms work. Like it touches so many different parts of different industries, so you can learn things about supply chain you never knew before, or finance, economics, politics, all of that.
Yeah, totally, totally. You just start seeing blockchain in everything. I totally agree.
So you're really into DeFi right now. We didn't get to talk to you for disrupting the system, but I like to ask young people, especially this, because I think it really informs why they're so passionate about blockchain. What are the general use cases that you are most excited about, or the ones that you think have the most potential to like really change how we live our lives?
Yeah, so I think that the whole idea of being able to lend your kind of capital in a pool with other people and having no kind of like administrator level that's taking a lot of that profit in the way that you would for a bank is really impactful, because basically it reduces the need for this kind of centralized entity to either do things like grant loans or, for example, provide insurance to people. A lot of these kind of new aspects that DeFi is taking on takes away some of these admin roles that have traditionally made things more expensive for people who may need things like a loan. So I think that's pretty exciting for sure. I would say that the more that kind of comes out, you'll see two things happening. One, I think that people will start to shift their money in terms of investment, but also holding into things like stable coins that can earn interest. Like if you could hold your money in a stable coin that earns any percentage of interest back, like why would you hold your money in a bank at that point if it's just as secure and safe? Like you're seeing returns that didn't exist before. And then I think what's going to happen soon after that is that you're going to see a lot of these banks and these enterprises adopt this technology because they're worried that they're going to lose competition to these new markets. So I think it will be like, first, people are going to try to stretch their money by putting them in crypto and in stable coins where they can see a better return on investment. And then banks will be forced to innovate because of what's happening right now, kind of in the same way that you're seeing apps like Robinhood, where they have 0% commission. And now other kind of more traditional banks are having to do that with 0% commission for stock. I think you'll start to see more of a demand from people to have their money grow and to see more of the profit that these banks have been making forever off of people. They're going to start to demand kind of that their money be invested in, that they're seeing some of that return in a way that they would with crypto through some of these DeFi protocols.
Yeah, stop making money off of my money and not giving any back to me, or making money off
Yeah,
of my data. And I don't see any of that, right? I think that this the whole decentralized movement, and the people who are getting involved in it are interested in, not having, your data, your money, making other people rich at the expense of your privacy, autonomy, all sorts of things. So wrapping up then, kind of, maybe that also answered my spooky Halloween question I've been asking my interviewees. But well, one, if you have a ghost story or a scary crypto story, anything scary that's ever happened to you, maybe lost some money and had to learn not your keys, not your crypto, or otherwise, what do you think is the scariest thing about traditional finance or centralized finance or our global monetary system as it is today?
I would just say inflation in terms of the monetary system, like especially in the United States, like the amount of money that we're just kind of creating out of thin air is going to make that the money that we hold in US dollar less valuable over time. And that's not really sustainable. So I think, that's a huge problem that we're going to have to address or find other solutions such as Bitcoin. And then what I would say is kind of like something that's scary just in the industry in general is people who I guess gave up a long time ago on this industry, because I remember back in 2011, even 2015, even 2016, even in 2017, once we saw this huge pump and then crash, through all of those years, there's been so many people who have kind of been naysayers saying like, oh, like this Bitcoin thing isn't going to work out. Like it's a scam, or like crypto is going to go away. It's just like a fad. And like all of that has been proven wrong. So I'm just, I'm more afraid for the people who kind of gave up. And, I think that hopefully people are going to stick with it and realize the potential so that we can see innovation even faster. Because I remember when Bitcoin was like, $15 and it went up to 30 and it crashed down to like $7 and people said like, oh, it's over now. So never give up on the industry or on crypto or Bitcoin, because it truly is the future of finance.
Well, thank you so much, Zach, for sharing all your perspectives. Anything else that you're working on that you want to plug or tell people where to find you?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Bitcoin Zach. I just made a Twitter like a month ago. So I'm active on Twitter now. You can find me there.
And you got a great handle.
I know. I can't believe that hadn't been taken yet. I was shocked. Bitcoin Zach, you would think, right? But yeah, so I would just follow me on Twitter, and then just generally stay tuned for OKCoin, new updates. And we're going to be having some different kind of thought leaders come on too. So just check out that feed for more interesting content and what's up in crypto and DeFi.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Zach. And thank you to everyone tuning in. We'll be back with more Reimagine 2020 version 4 soon.
Thank you, Ashlie.